You are listening to Transmissions from the Planet Zog, Milo and Teal, Book 1, Birds of a Feather. Chapter 14, Sound Pictures. I want to make the pictures, Teal, said Milo, excited too. Emily's confidence was infectious. I want to show them our tree houses and the bridge and the central school hall and the apprentice ring and the medicine arboretum and the pond and fields and river systems. So just about everything, Milo, responded Emmeline, smiling at her little cousin. You can take the images with your pod, and when it comes to transmitting them, I could help you with Tonias. He showed me how to break down images into frequencies and then to pulse them through the crystal lattices so they can travel huge distances to Earth and be reassembled in the sleeping minds. Teal, do you know exactly where you're going to focus on? Which areas of Earth, you mean, Emmeline? Well, I think the schools which responded first, Ecuador and Russia, then maybe around where Isabel lives. Couldn't hurt to support her case a bit. That sounds good, you know. I'd love to see what they started to do in those places. Is this registered in the library yet? Asked Emmeline. I think it is. Well, Tonias is always sending everything on that way, so yes, it must be categorised in there somewhere. There's an image of the school and the feelings of the children who almost sound like us. They're happy and independent, they choose what they want to investigate, and the adults clear the way for all of the experiments. It seems the more curious they get, the more faculties the adults install for them to explore, so that there are all kinds of weird and wonderful play structures being built around the school. For example, children are flying planes made out of banana leaves, balsa wood, metal, paper, plastic and wood. I guess they're working out how to build flyers, said Milo, sure in his conviction that children would have access to every area of human research, including solar-powered energy cell construction and gravity equalizers. Teal quickly pointed out this major difference. Milo, they aren't yet allowed to build technical things with their electricity and power. Dad said adults on Earth don't understand enough about electricity yet to let their kids play with it. They're still afraid of the current. They have to protect themselves against electricity because they still don't quite get how it's produced. But they'll never build things that way, countered Milo. At least they know how to talk with trees and animals, don't they? I'm afraid they don't really either. Not yet. Not most people, Milo, answered Emmeline, who had carefully questioned Isabel in much the same way when she had first appeared from Earth. So, singing a structure and blending with the plants isn't done there? How do they ask the plants to do things for them? I mean, they just grow all over the place. Milo, if you recall, was not only the keenest of builders for his young age, but newly apprenticed to learn about tree felling, an important and rare practice on Zog. Mostly, plants would be merged with on the higher vibrational planes through the meditative practice of song weaving. During this process, the plant would be contacted through feeling into its essence. Then an image would be presented to it of how the Zoggian wanted it to grow. This could be done with many plants at one time with the help of several songsters holding the particular focus of vibration. We'd see it as a group of people singing a harmonious song, quietly. During this process, the plant would indicate its acceptance or preference for growth, and a solution would be reached. The most gifted sensitives employed their skills at this type of communication. Pictures would be received clairvoyantly in their minds from the consciousness of the tree or plant. Next, alternative or altered images would be formed in the mind of the songster and held there long enough for the plant to pick it up and form a preference. As whole houses were built from living trees, roots formed extraordinary structures which could be dug up after decades and used for fences, walls, towers, shells of the flyers. Anything and everything could be constructed with the help of the rich lignin fibres of plants, more or less dense with cellulose and air. Milo and Teal were quite used to seeing this whole sculptures being formed underground or above ground, grown there lovingly by the plant, to be harvested or simply admired by their co-creators. They were used to limitless thought in these matters, and where wood wouldn't be appropriate material, metals or crystals would be grown instead. In the cold regions of the north, water was used to create extraordinary ice vessels and structures for the people choosing to live, work and visit there. Zoggians could even make waterproof vessels for diving underwater, just by encouraging seaweeds to grow in extraordinarily tight overlapping layers. Bladderwracks would co-join their air sacs into multi-chambered floats for buoyancy. Fine shells of cellulose and silica would be grown on land by algal colonies in huge pools, and these formed capsules which were pressure-resistant and airtight for divers to access the depths of the oceans. And why did they need to access oceans on Zog? Well, pure curiosity for one. Limitlessness to them meant that all areas of the planet were up for exploration, befriending, cooperation and co-creation. The Zoggians discovered beautiful things could be made when you cooperated with deep-sea clams and oysters, or received information from lamprey-like fish in the deep sea. They would tell Zoggians how to create light when darkness abounds. Coral would be grown into walls with the help of eager coral polyps, curious, building high and wide. The polyps were perfectly happy to oblige with conforming to a pattern sung by a clear voice, to a structure, or one which could be harvested to the land, after decades of slowly growing living coral polyps at the outer layers. Nature was a plaything to Zoggians, but never without agreement or mutual fun. If you ask rather than command, inspire rather than dictate, you get many playful elements which neither party could have dreamed in the first instance. They arose from the question and answering between the elements and the human ideas. Zog was a richly beautiful place as a result. How should they go about this great message to Earth? That was a question Milo and Teal presented to each other in their new treehouse. Emmeline had been invited to brainstorm, and Foni too, who had just arrived back from the jungle. Benji was there, and Tanias. The whole team. "I want to create something awe-inspiring," said Teal, who had been feeling her way through this exciting project one idea at a time. "Somehow the sound we make should be so mind-blowing that these dreams reoccur and get spoken about and continue to resonate as a piece of folklore." "When we sent Isabel back to Earth, Shenya had the same idea," said Tanaeus. 12 of the best songsters worked together to weave such powerful threads of song that the whole village where Isabel lived began dreaming the same thing. If we can weave something similar, more of your ideas will be seeded in their minds, and a gentle transition into more freedom will be introduced into the lives of many. "I want Teal to sing something she's never sung before," said Milo, now piping up. "She's so good at making song lyrics, but I always feel it's her long notes which tell me the most." "But it's your voice, Milo, which cuts through the air," countered Teal. "You should sing using your pure notes. We can simply hold the image of how these Earth children could feel about their lives and create a sound which holds their energy." "Teal," said Tanias, "I seen firsthand what powerful focus you two have, especially when you work together. Do you remember that time in the caves of Essie? You thought you had only been singing for 20 minutes. Turns out you were singing for 4 hours, completely absorbed." "That must be a record," said Emmeline. "I could never hold one subject in my mind for that long, unless it was another animal, I suppose." "But it sort of is, Emmeline," said Teal. "I know human beings on Earth aren't animals or pets, but I know how much you love animals, so it evens out in the long run. I just get so excited when I know I can share our story here with Earth children. I want them to feel as happy and as free to discover and explore and create their lives as we do." I know, said Tanias. "We could use the crystal concert chamber at Essie, or even in this village for that matter." "But the concert chamber in Essie is amazing," said Milo, now utterly engaged in the conversation. "If we sang there, Teal and I and you and Emmeline and Foni could make the biggest sound ever." "Or the most ethereal and memorable," said Emmeline. "The last time I heard sound being made in there, I couldn't stop shivering for 2 days. The sound echoes so clear and pure in those walls that every single cell in my body was shaken up and made to dance." "We've been tweaking the space, actually," said Tanias. "We can now change the direction of the echo by moving one large panel of crystal, which means that when someone sings solo or a group of songsters sing, we can make the sound ripple around the space, surprising and delighting the audience. We conducted a healing concert for all the tiny newborns in Essie last week to help speed up their growth and strength. It's ridiculous how much more resilient they've all become in the last 5 days. I hardly recognise the triplets I visited yesterday." "Could we use that like a question and answer system to the sound and then transmit that directly through the crystals to Earth?" asked Teal. "I could set out the question part with a lyric describing something wonderful we do here." "And the answer could be a blast of us, all feeling super excited," said Milo. "Milo, can you make one of those powerful B-flats you made in Essie?" "Yeah, just like that." And Milo sang out the truest, purest, loudest note you have ever heard from a little 9-year-old boy. Emmeline sighed and Tanias winked in pure admiration. If, said Teal, we set up a chord around that note and pulsed it gradually, like a heartbeat, getting gradually quicker, we could make it truly exciting. Immediately, Milo, who, as you know, was a boy who loved action, burst into a set of pulsing B-flat notes, and Emmeline, Tanias, Teal and Foni joined in, wrapping their harmony around the original purity of the first note. Wow, said Emmeline. My arms are tingling all over and we're not even in the concert cave yet. Look, the hairs are standing up on end. Have you ever felt that? Tingling in or on your body as though someone is tickling you with some kind of starry feather duster? It's not spoken about much, is it? Like so many of our emotional feelings on Earth, people feel a little crazy talking about sensations which come from unseen sources. Sound, of course, can be seen on an oscilloscope or in somatics as very interesting shapes, in fact, but nevertheless, humans seem to feel it is odd and awkward to talk about a vibration affecting them. Funny, of course, particularly to the Zoggian mind. After all, even we on Earth know that everything is made of atoms and every atom of quarks and every quark simply a pulse of energy, so all we really are is a highly organised collection of pulsing energy held together by a latticework of consciousness which is agreed to hold together for a reason. Sound is just one part of that. Shake, tweak, soothe or jar any collection of stiller energy. It can also change one form of energy to another, but that is a whole other Zog story for another book altogether. Zoggians know these things as standard basic knowledge, and that is why sound, songsters, song, music and creating through sound are an essential part of their happy lives. I think we should sing like this. And suddenly little Benji, who'd been keeping still and silent all the while, came out with a two-tone note. Briefly around the treehouse and then ended in a loud moment of hush from everyone else. When did you learn to do that, Benji? Asked Tanias, whose main interest was studying unusual aspects of sound. He knew that Benji was singing in overtones. That's when two sounds are projected evenly through your nose and mouth at the same time. Oh, I do it all the time, said Benji. I just thought it would fit with Milo's sound, that's all. It does. Oh, it does, said Emmeline. It fits perfectly, in fact, sort of twists the sound upwards unexpectedly. Did you notice, Benji, how everyone went silent afterwards? Yes, people do that all the time with me. I think it's because it sounds a little strange. Strange, perhaps, said Foni, but marvellous too. Imagine your note mixed with Milo's, and then we other singers come in and twist the chord first, and then up, and then down, up, down again. Let's try it, said Teal, who was almost anxious to hear the effect. It was nearly painful how excited she felt. She had to keep breathing deeply to hold herself still. Really, she wanted to climb to the top of the tree and sing out Milo's note and get the whole village singing with her in harmony, including anyone who could sing in overtones too. Milo started once more to sing his note, then Benji, then one by one everyone found a note until the chord they formed was so extraordinary. All of them were rooted to the very spots of the wooden treehouse floor they stood in. Let's pulse it. First up, then down, using Benji's overtones as the lead note, with Milo staying constant in the middle. Teal was becoming director of her friends, a role she had not imagined she would take, but right now it seemed the most natural thing in the world for her to do. One by one, everyone found their own stream in the emerging melody. After 3 minutes of pulsing gradually faster, the 7 singers stopped still. Into the entrance of the treehouse had come the honeybird, followed by her brood of 5 smaller birds, all now fully fledged and able to flutter about by themselves. They stood in the doorway and chirped, together, 4 short notes in perfect sync, with the rhythm of the singers. Wow, whispered Emmeline this time. Her favourite expression of excitement seemed too little for the moment. Something new is happening here, was all she could say to follow. I remember a story Isabel told us when she was here, that starlings were singing a techno beat on Earth. She said they'd learned it from a ringtone on mobile phones, which was popular at the time. I wondered if we could ask birds to join us in the pulse signal we'd be singing. They could help the earth birds to absorb the information and spread it around the air. Foni was excited about his plan, but Emily not so sure. Birds always have a reason to sing everything they sing, you know, Foni. Milo and Teal would have to find a reason for the birds to join in with us and learn the coded melody. Emmeline's affinity for birds was full of respect, so much so that she didn't like to suggest anything to them, but preferred to listen to what they had to say. "Do you think birds are interested in other birds on other planets?" asked Benji, whose pondering was as wide open as any 7-year-old's. "I think any bird worth their salt would enjoy helping the planet Earth get happier. After all, happy people equal happy nature," said Teal. "I know that people on Earth have created more ideas to help the planet in the last 20 years than have ever been had before in all the time people have lived there. There must be something to it. I'll ask the birds if they want to help us." And Teal, full of fervour, clarity and imagination, threw up her head and whistled a high note. She had learnt the blackbird summons from Emmeline. She already recognised the robin's pattern of notes, and the honeybirds had become second nature to her. "There they are!" shouted Milo, watching as 3 birds flew out from the edge of the forest towards the group. "Do it again, Teal, it's working!" And Teal whistled her 3 whistles again, and 7 birds arrived at their feet. "Emmeline, do you think you could ask them what Foni just said? They seem very keen." Peer pressure not being the kind of thing Emmeline surrendered to, she could not deny the fact that there were now 7 willing birds waiting to hear what the summons was about. "Okay, everyone, all sit down and feel into how we would sound if we sang Benji and Milo's tune with the birds. You do that, and I'll speak directly to them." What followed was not only a series of imaginary pictures being held in the minds of the group and sweet expressions of delight as they pondered the future, but Emmeline was heard buzzing and twerping, somewhere between singing and whistling, as the birds shuffled a little from side to side. Turning towards the group, Emmeline announced, "If they turn up this afternoon, they are willing to join us. In the meantime, we'd better get a look at this crystal concert hall and plan out how to get the birds inside and the sound recorded." "I can help with that," said Tanias, relieved to be of assistance. "When we're ready to record, I'll switch the floor and walls to capture the frequencies bounced off them. After we've mixed them, we'll have the perfect signal to send from Essie."